Hello everyone. I am doing another replay analysis video. I'm finding myself enjoying these quite a bit. I feel like they help me kind of give myself a way to really pick apart what my strategies are and think about it outside of the game. Because sometimes when you're inside of the game, I feel like it's almost like you see at the moment and you don't think about it in a broad perspective. But it also gives me a chance to really pick apart what plays I could have done better and what I could have done differently. Now, in this video, I'm doing a build that I personally don't really think works very well. It's a lot of fun, but it is so situational and it's really easy to counter that I just don't really think it's viable. And I'm running AP Burst Mage-ish Nasus mid. And I really enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun, but I just don't think it's as good, and it's very situational for when it does work. Now in this video it ends up working, and it works very well. There is a lot of decision making that I think that goes on with this particular play style that makes it work or not work, I guess you could say. And one of the major things that I would like you to look right off the bat is that my team is entirely comprised of AD champs, if I'm not mistaken. And Nasus' core burst damage comes in the form of his E, which does pretty good AP ratios. Like, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty great, but it's not amazing. It's just pretty good AP ratios. Especially at low levels, it's just overwhelming, and then you kind of build into it, and it's like, it's not that hard. But at the beginning, it's overwhelming. Now, since in Season 7, this is the preseason, Season 7, Season 8, preseason, I don't, honestly, I lost track of it, I don't really care, I just kind of play and go with the flow. Season 8 preseason, just looked it up. Look at me go, talking about strategy, I don't even know what's going on. There's a preseason and they reset everything, and one of the ruins keystones is a meteor little dealio, and it's pretty nice. It allows you to, with Nasus it's pretty cool because if you E, it shoots out the little orb afterwards, and it's got a massive hitbox. It creates this like arena that I would describe, and if they're anywhere near it on the initial cast, it shoots the meteor. And if I understand it correctly, and I believe it works like this, every single tick that happens when they're in it, for each enemy champion, it resets the meteor. So if you're in a big team fight, I think you can actually shoot multiple meteors pretty darn fast. I know with Malzahar you can get 2 meteors off on 1 E if you do it right. But that's an entirely different strategy. The other thing that's interesting about this preseason is there's no defensive at all, and no mana regen at all. Like, they're pretty awful. Like, most of the strategies for this season just are burst your opponent out of the lane. And oddly enough, that's exactly what Nasus can do with this build. He can just burst, do a lot of damage, and kind of force them back. What I am trying to do in this game is I'm trying to force my opponent out of the lane, or since it's an Orianna, what I want her to do, or Orianna, what I really want her to do is I want her to use her shield on herself and force her mana. So you'll see it here shortly that I will walk up and shoot the orb at her, or no, I'll shoot the AoE and then I'll shoot a meteor at her. And she'll have to respawn by using her shield to keep herself safe and alive and essentially in lane. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but the real core to this is that I am able to out-sustain her because I have natural life still. So if she has no way of dealing damage to me because she's out of mana, I can sustain through it. It's pretty oppressive, but as I said, it's pretty easy to counter. If anyone comes near me and ganks me, and I'm unprepared, I don't have a flash or anything, it's pretty lopsided. I will lose. If there's a champion that has high mobility that they can get around that giant arena right there, Zed, Talon to some extent, because you could probably, if you space yourself wrong, they can jump over those little walls. Like, there's a lot of ways for them to get around that. And if they can, it doesn't work. If they have any, like, if the whole team if your whole team is AP burst and you're Nasus, your E is not going to be great. So what it does is it reduces their armor. Now, since our entire team, as I mentioned, is AD, having a big AoE that reduces their armor, making my team do more damage, I don't think it'll reflect to me. I think it'll reflect to my team that they do more damage, but it's a pretty substantial amount of damage. It's like having a press the attack that hits all of your teammates at every E. And it's pretty great. I think it's pretty good. And you'll see later in the video it ends up helps turn a couple team fights. But in the laning phase, as I mentioned, there is decision making that goes on. So I can continuously spam E and kill the minions and not get stacks. Because if anyone who's ever played Nasus or played against Nasus or even really understands what Nasus is, Nasus has his Q, and it does this little stick smack, and every single champion or minion that you kill with it, it makes it do more damage. And it theoretically can go indefinitely. Like, I had a game several seasons ago now, I think it was season 3, where I had 1,600 some damage on the Q, and it was comical. It was one of those seasons where every game just ended up going on and on and on. And I just ended up farming because, well, that's what the game turned into. No one wanted to end the game, so we just all ended up, you know, stalling it on, and I just got ridiculously big. But anyway, you either kill the minions with your Q, or you poke your opponent out with the E. And that's the decision making right there. It's very, very tough. Because if you don't have Q stacks at the end of the game, you won't do damage. So to balance them out, I thought was very interesting. It was very tough. But if you use Lich's Bane, it kind of compensates for it. So at the end of the game, I had a Q that was doing about 550 damage. Because I got just over, I think it was 230 stacks. Then all of the AP bonus off of the Lich's Bane ended up making it do about 550 damage. So that's still pretty sizable. But anyway, so I'm building... Man, it's really nothing special. It's just AP. It's just AP. I really like Morello's. I think it's a great item. It's probably one of the best AP items, since there's only really 2 that are viable in my mind. In my mind, well, 3, maybe 4, depending on the champion you are. I think that Morello's, the Death Cap, man, I think tier. And to some extent, I would say, I think it's Ruin's Echoes. It's the one that bursts them whenever you use it. This is an interesting team fight, because I don't really do much. To be honest with you, I ult, run in, Q, and I get a nice little solid kill there. Oh, I don't get a kill. Bah, that was a later fight. But what I do is I basically come in swinging and say, I'm here, I'm a big presence. And they have to scatter around me. And since everything around me is just damage and AP based, it's kind of hard to get around. And I'm still pseudo-tanky. Like, I'm Nasus, I still have natural tankiness about me. But it's not as inherent as if I was building tank. And what's great about that right there is that I'm AP and I do AP damage, but my E makes it so that my allies do more AD damage. The trade-off is pretty apparent. Here, I actually remember this, and I was legitimately worried, because I screwed up. I should not have fought that. I should have just backed off and let him have the ward. And then very quickly I realized that I was going to be flanked by lots of people, and my Thresh pinged me, like, on my screen, or at least I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I just remember seeing it and going, oh crap. So I ran to him and picked up his lantern. I thanked him in the game, but like that was a moment where we were just like, oh crap, I overextended. The other nifty thing about this particular build and this particular playstyle champion is that I can slow push a lane crazy good. Because if you look right there, I E'd the back minions and left them. That means that the lane is going to slow push, and here's where the game really starts to pick up and I really start to shine. I see a team fight going on. Lee and I are coming in for reinforcements. I was slow to the react. At this moment, I was actually watching the bottom tower and I didn't see it. I was a little slow to react. But right there, since I had that giant thing, everyone did more damage and they just melted. Just straight up melted. When you're doing this, a very, very, very good way to get stacks is to hunt wards. Hunting wards is very important. You don't see it on the screen, but at this moment I was actually watching the Jace run away. I was gonna go help, but I realized I was too far away. The slow is really nice too, but I realized I was too far away, so I couldn't really do much. So I figured let's just go back and farm and farm and farm. The longer I can out-farm my opponent, the more presence I can have late game, which is what I'm trying to play for. In general, but with Nasus I like to play for late game. With Katarina I play for early game. Nasus I would play for late game. I don't think I did a lot. If I remember correctly, I don't actually have a pretty relevant score until later in the game. I ended up getting an S rank and got a loot chest for it, because I hadn't hit an S with Nasus yet, but early game, I just spent most of it poking. Like right there, I was doing damage and she had to use the orb on herself to shield ticks and stuff. And all I do is I wait for her to get relatively close to the lane, watch the cursor. Here's where it is really, really good. I slow him and I flash. No big deal, wow, I outplayed them, but the slow allowed me to stay alive. Because what I did is I slowed him so that when I flashed, even then he couldn't chase me. The slow is such a nice get out of jail free card if you use it specifically as such. Or if you can catch them, and I did this in one of my previous games, but I don't think I did it in this game, where they were really overextended to the creep wave. Look at her mana. Look at her mana and look at my stats. She has to use her mana to stay alive. It's so good. Right there, boom. So good. But in one of my previous games, I was playing, and they overextended to get a creep. So what I did is I planted an orb so that they had to run through the entire area orb. I call that thing an orb, but it's like an arena, sphere, circle, whatever you want to call it. And I placed it in such a way that they would have to run through the entirety of it to get away from me. And then I slowed them. Now, in an AP area, each one of the hits made the orb go fast, or the meteor recharged faster. So they took more damage from the AP ratios, and they charged my meteor so that the next time a wave came and I hit them, I got to meteor them again. And it's just so good. It's kind of oppressive. But that's what this whole preseason's, it's kind of in a nutshell. But, so what I do is I build into Lich's Bane, like I mentioned earlier, which makes it so that I do relevant damage to my Q stack. Because let's be honest here, it's most of the damage is going to come from the stack. I'm running the rune, keystone, whatever you want to call it, that makes it so that when I use an ult, I can ult again faster and it reduces the cooldown. I think that for team fights, that's very, very important. And since I'm not building tanky, I need to have those stats as much as possible. The stats he gets from using them. Look at that. Very outer circle, I get a Q stat. And since the initial burst is the most of the damage, oh, it's so good. It's pretty easy to read, though. Like, as a person playing against Nasus, I could very easily tell you when they're going to go for it. It's pretty obvious. For two reasons. One, they look at you and run straight at you. And two, really, if you're anywhere in the vicinity, they're just kind of gonna go for it. So you probably should run at them. You should probably run at them to run through it, or you should do some sort of dash. Like, this would be a good matchup just to buy that proto belt. It would probably be just a good item to have because it would get you out of the Q range and get you a trade in your favor. This is a team fight, if I remember correctly, that I should have died, but they ended up saving me, if I remember correctly. I think this is it. Yeah, so I overextended. I got up close. Jeez, not to get on board. I should have died. I got crazy lucky. That saved me. I would have been dead. They would have won that team fight if Jace didn't knock me out. That's all that was. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. They outplayed us, but they outplayed themselves as well. I'm gonna take no credit for that success. I should have been dead. I ended up making through this game with 0 deaths, and I like it when that happens. I always try to play very cautious, but I enjoy it when that happens. The other really nice thing about this is that, and this is something that I was figuring out as the game went on, and I was enjoying it, the learning process. You can farm, and you should farm, but you should also know when you want to clear a wave. So right there, instead of choosing to E and clear the wave immediately, I chose to get a couple stacks, then I chose to clear the wave with the E. I wanted to change the positioning. Now here I'm dinking around trying to check the spacing to see how many minions I can kill. It's one of those moves that has a very weird, like, casting tooltip where you kind of see where you can cast it and where the influence is. But if you try to actually click where the spell goes, the game says, nope, you're too far, and you have to, like, reposition it. So I was trying to, like, run around the wall there. It's one of those weird skills, and I think those are ones that are, for the most part, skills of... Oh, this is funny. I wasn't looking. I probably could have had a kill there. I decided to bail because I wasn't sure where everyone was. It was one of those last minute, I might be having people come at me. I'm not 100% sure, so I bailed out. I figured while I was out here, I would get that totem, get me some stacks. Any excuse. Okay, so here was actually a little mind game. I figured the Jace was going to try and shoot at me. And I was also figuring, because he knew I was going for Scuttle, I was thinking he was going to try and steal the Scuttle. So I put myself between the Scuttle and the shot, and then I actually thought about it a little bit more, and I changed where the Scuttle should be running, and then I started hitting it again, and as you could see, he misjudged where I was going to be as a result. So even if it did hit me, it would have hit me, and the Scuttle would have been alive, I believe. So that was a little bit of a mind game that I was playing right there. I kind of read it. And this is another one of those situations. I wanted to push the lane, go to a different lane to farm. So I used an E to clear out, and there it was. I figured they'd be there, so... A lot of weird decision-making going on. A lot of reads, movements. Shen ended up being a big problem this game for me because Shen can absorb so much health and he can regenerate so much health. And he can block Q stacks. Holy Toledo, he can block Q stacks. That's not much damage, Ezreal. Come on. The Ezreal is a good example of what would a counterpick be to this, because I actually, for the most part of this game, struggled to hit Ezreal. I think there was only 1 or 2 fights where he was actually fighting someone previously that I was able to land a shot on. Because he can just hop around, and he sees me running at him, he just jumps to a different spot, and it'll hit him. So I have to predict where he'll land, or if he'll jump. This was a clean kill. I remember seeing that going, oh, we're all getting collapsed on him, and boy did we. And that E made everyone else do more damage to him, and since I'm doing AP damage, it's hard to build against that. On a side note, I don't like these emotes at all. I have seen too many games where people just like spam them, like they kill you and give you a thumbs up, and you're just like, oh, okay, I see how this is. This is another one where I just kind of go in, show myself that I'm there. I figured, so what my thought was is they were going to run away, so I decided that I would turn and flank them. And it ended up paying out in spades. I pinged him there saying, don't go in. I give him a danger ping, because I figured if he went in, he would get Shen. He would get Shen, he would get ulted, he'd blow up. So I immediately danger ping that over and over again. Go to a lane, Q to get some lifesteal, and then clear the wave so that I can push. There's a couple situations in this game, and I think I've already showed you one of them. Oh, so much damage. How do you out-trade that? You ult and hold your ground. It's starting to get to the phase of the game where it's just like, I'm I am tough. I'm a tough mage. It's almost like... It's oppressive in the sense where it's like Xerath, I would say. Because you can poke, because of how far the range of everything is, you can poke and still be safe way in the back line with Nasus, much like you can with Xerath. I think this is an example of one of the situations where I farm and then kind of... It's tough because I'm doing this on my first take and I'm trying to remember what situations were what. But this one I chose to farm because there wasn't a lot going on. But there was a situation top, and I believe there was a situation bottom where I used the E. Yeah, this actually might have been it. Where I used the E to kill the caster minions, and then I let all of my minions clump, and then I let them slow push from there. Top, I did this too. There's a lot of nuanced lane pressure you can do with Nasus, because you can hit the back lane and the caster minions, the back line, and then just continue on your way, and it'll slow push. And you can do it in one E. That's what's so good about it, is you can do it in one E, and it'll kill the entire back line, and you just go on your way. Whew. I really enjoy these. These give me a good insight as to what I'm doing wrong and right. And there's a couple plays in a couple of these videos I've done that I thought were pretty good. Pretty proud of a couple of these. That teleports to that farm. See, look at that wave clear. So good. I cleared it so that the tower wouldn't get anything, and then I chose to farm. So good. If done right, it's so good. But as I said, there's so many different ways to play against this, and if I were to get ganked once or twice, since it's a double-edged sword. If I were to get ganked, I wouldn't have been held back as much as if I were just playing straight AD, because I have to get those stacks to do my damage. With this, I'm doing my damage with an E, and that you just need items for, you don't need stacks for. So in order for Nasus to do damage late game, you have to do stacks and damage, or tankiness. In this, you just kind of build damage and kind of, you know, do your thing. See, backline kill, farm the front, let the minions cluster, and then go on your way. So good. So good. Hey guys, I'm here. I should have died here. Quite frankly, I should have died. I ulted, got myself safe, and then since I'm not needed in the front line, I can just sit there and poke with an E. I ended up being very cautious this fight because I didn't recognize that Ezreal ulted, so I was a little worried he would ult me. So, yeah, that was an in-game moment where I was just like, oh crap, he's gonna ult me. But since everything was going on, I didn't recognize that it already had happened. I think this game I end up going 7-0 and 7 at the end of the game, which is pretty good. Pretty good, all things considered, if you really think about it. Considering that I'm only going AP, right? I'm not actually building into tanky damageness. The front line in our team is kind of lackluster, because I'm kind of the front line, but we also have a Thresh and a Lee Sin, so it's kind of like buff. We can get away with it. Look at this wave clear. I have enough stacks where I can actually one-shot minions and get stack credits for it. That's great considering that I'm AP damage. This is another fight that ends up just being really hard for us, because I get multiple people with one. Like, they're all there. They're all right there, which means every single one of Jin's shots do more damage there. It's so good. We end up, I think, losing this exchange, but still, like, that was so much damage right there. So much raw. I ended up doing the most damage in the entire game by like 40k. I remember that at the end, and I was looking at it just being like, wow, that was some serious damage. The other thing is there's another rune slash keystone, whatever you want to call it, that I actually think is extremely good on Nasus. Like, we're talking extremely good on Nasus. Whenever you use an impairment ability, like a stun, a slow, a movement impairment, it marks the enemy so that whenever my allies attack them, they heal for like 2% of my max health. Well, since Nasus is naturally HP tanky for the most part, whenever I do that, I'm like a mid AP burst support. It's quite frankly a little much. There's a lot of things in this preseason that are just dumb. Like, one of the most frustrating things I have seen all preseason has been Pantheon top with Ari, and he just Qs, and then the thing flies back to him, and he Qs again immediately. Because he's so close. There was a time where he hit me, stunned me, and he used the spears, and the stun hit Airy, he was back, the spears happened, the spears triggered Airy, the Airy went back, and then he Q'd. And in that sequence, he hit me 3 times with Airy. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That's too much damage. That's what that was. But Nasus, this is one of those that could be super great. Like, go in, getting slow, E, make things do more damage, just kind of be there, have an intimidating presence, slow them so they can't get away. Like, it's pretty solid. It worked out pretty well. Slow them so they can't get away, heal my allies because of it. He's in the orb so they take damage, and they take more damage. It's like a press the attack for my whole team with an E. So good. So stinking good. I think we end up winning the game here. Because look at that. Look how much damage my Q stacks do. Despite going AP burst, I'm still able to do relevant damage. I have to play it a little bit careful here. So I'm low and I don't want to die. I don't want to ruin my perfect score. There's that thumbs up ping. That free one. I remember walking by this going, I could eat this. I could take all of it. I chose not to. I just remember looking at that dude like so thirsty. I was like, oh, look at that. I could increase my stats. Oof. I'm not sure if I like this Nasus skin. I think it's rather dapper, but at the same time, I think it's like buff. It's not that great. I'd rather use the Hellhound one, or I think it's Galactic Nasus. That's the other one I like a lot. There's only a couple champions that I think look great in their original outfits. I think Malzahar is one that looks good on his original outfit. And I thought Sivir looked really good before her remake, but after the remake, they kind of subtly changed it. So after the remake, I thought Huntress and Bandit ended up being the coolest ones. The new Pax Sivir color chroma is garbage. Absolutely garbage. I'm just thinking, where should I go? When should I pop out? Are they going to flank? Are they going to run? Do I cut them off? Do we fight? I ended up making a decent choice where I figured I would cut off the wall. It ended up working out well. That was a mistake. I wanted to go the other way, but it ended up working in my favor because I was still away anyway. I think this is where we end it. I think we actually end it here. Yeah, I could do anything. I chose to go for the turret because I wasn't sure. At that moment, I wasn't looking where they were located, so I figured, I don't see them, let's just go for the turret within range of Jin so I can see it. And then that giant sphere, the giant, bring me, come at me, bro. And I'm tanky enough where I can tank turrets. It's so crazy good if played right. This just ended up working out really well. In previous games it didn't, I got ganked. The first game I tried this, I ended up being top. And I was going pseudo AP, pseudo tanky, and Pantheon just ruined base. His poke damage was crazy. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful. Have a good one, guys. Victory.